Well, hello there, YouTube. This is a late night virtual painting session for me, but it could be a different time for you. But in any case, before we get started, I need to mention that there will certainly be some background noise in this video. So if you want to turn the audio off and then watch all of the footage and then draw or paint along with me in silent, that's perfectly fine. So, this is a Rembrandt that I started, a Rembrandt study that I started, like last week or something like that. And so if you want to see how the colors are mixed up, please see the video before this one. If you want to see how this painting was started, again, please see the video before this one. So what I'm going to do today is continue to work on this. This is not an alla prima painting by any means, because we're going to be layering onto this. So all of this is completely dry, it's thoroughly dry, and to make sure that your paintings are dry, remember to run a palette knife across it, but it's been like a whole week, so this is definitely dry. So once again, these colors are lead white, yellow ochre, cadmium red deep, and this is ivory black, or you can use German vine black, which is the Rublev color, but today I'm just using ivory black. This is just simple Winsor Newton ivory black. This is Old Holland cadmium red deep. The yellow ochre is Blue Ridge yellow ochre from Rublev, and the lead white is lead white #1 from Rublev. And I'm going to be using bristle brushes. The medium that I'll be using today, I will be using medium, is Venetian medium from Rublev. So those of you in the audience watching this live, feel free to ask me any art related questions. Let's just make sure that the questions are catered towards art. So let's keep the conversation towards art. So I'm going to do one last little check here, and then we're going to get started painting. Okay, all right, so we are ready to go. So the brushes that I'll be using, like I said, are bristle brushes. Some of the brushes still have paint on them from a previous painting session. So if you're like me and you paint a lot, then you know what it is. You just clean your brushes pretty much at night when you're done painting for the day. If you only paint once in a while, then I would probably clean the brushes right after you finish painting, so you don't accidentally leave any brushes out. So what I'm doing is I'm adding a little bit of Venetian medium to the darks, and this helps to bring back the original value that the painting had when it was wet, although the paint hasn't sunken in too much. And remember, this is not intended to be a lesson. This is not a free lesson by any means. This is just a virtual painting session. Okay, so now that the shadows have some Venetian medium, I'm going to quickly double check the live stream again. So I haven't seen any comments here in the live stream, so this might mean that YouTube is glitching or I've lost internet. I don't quite know which one it is. So if you are watching in the audience, please feel free to say hello. If you are writing to me in the comments, it's not showing up on my YouTube, so I'm going to go ahead and refresh the chat. So this happens sometimes. The chat will glitch, and it's usually just an internet problem with YouTube. But the show must go on. Alright, so let's just get right to painting. So I'm going to start off somewhere easy, somewhere simple to warm up. Remember that the colors are going to look different depending on your computer screen or your tablet screen. So I work with pre-mixed colors. Once again, it's a fairly limited palette, but I do quite a bit of pre-mixing before painting. Hey, voice of reason. Oh wow, we just got 3 messages right away, so this is good. That means it's working. So hey, voice of reason, Musan and Bruno, hello. Thanks for attending the virtual painting session. So I'm starting off in the forehead. This is just an area for me to warm up. Now remember, I only added the medium to the shadows. So we are building basically opaque paint onto dry paint. So this is dry brushing. You don't want to oil out your painting every time you work on it. Now I understand if you're working on a more long-term project and you need to oil out after the first or second layer. By the way, if you're not familiar with the term oiling out, it just means adding medium to the entire painting to bring back the original colors. So once again, this row is basically just skin tone mixed with kind of an orangey mix of the yellow ochre, the cadmium red, and then tiny amounts of black, not very much black, and then obviously the lead white. That's this row. This row is mainly pink, so it's just the red and the white here, and then progressively more red and orange in the middle, still pink, and then we have a darker value there. This is the greenish row, so this has yellow ochre and ivory black. This makes green, and then add white to it, then you have a light green. Use more black, then you have a dark green. This is the orangey row. This has yellow ochre and cadmium red mixed into it, and then basically different ratios of white and black to make it darker. And then this is the gray bluish area, which is just lead white and ivory black, and then a little bit more ivory black. And that'll mainly just be used for the light of the eye or the sclera. And I have a different setup right now, so I'm using a palette that's on a table or that's propped instead of the palette on the side. I know that you may prefer the palette on the side, but I wanted to have a close-up view so you can see what I'm doing. And plus I just got this palette. This is a handmade palette, so it's not a palette that you can buy on the internet. A guy named Larry Wiseman made it in Baltimore. And I don't think he sells them online, so unless you're in the Baltimore area, this is basically all original, very difficult to find. And it's made of real wood. Most of these oval palettes are made of particle board, not real wood. So I do really like this palette. Hey Bruno, let's see. Hey Chill One, do you use yellow mostly in the forehead? Good question. Yeah, there's more yellow in the forehead, and usually there are color bands. So color band depends on the section that you're working on. So the foreheads typically are more yellow with most skin tones, not always the case. So this is the yellowish band, usually, not always the case, but this is the yellowish band. This is the pinkish band, reddish pinkish band. This is the greenish band. So different sections are going to have different colors. This one just happens to be more yellowish. And remember, I'm working from a picture of a Rembrandt. It's not going to be exactly the same as if I were looking at the painting in person. There goes the noise I was talking about. So yes, I apologize for that noise, but yeah, there's nothing I can do about that. So if the noise disturbs you too much, please just make the video silent. I personally don't like to work under loud noises, but I have no say in the matter, so. Anyway, so this is kind of an orangey brown. So I'm going into the orangish tones. Hey, Russ James. Okay, so there's more light up by the hair. Start to add this light in. And usually gray hair, if you use just black and white, it kind of looks strange, like too blue. So I'm going to add a little bit of skin tone into that. Maybe not that much. And I always recommend that you have the painting at about a 90-degree angle. Again, that's the noise coming from the environment here. There's some demolition going on around here, so I don't have any control over that. So again, I apologize for the noise. Pretty irritating, if you would ask me. So I'm going value per value, and like I said, this is not a free lesson by any means. If you're interested in lessons, please check out my online classes, which are more structured than this. But in any case, I'm just going one spot at a time. I'm not trying to work holistically. I'm basically building up the picture in small increments. Hey, voice of reason. Oh, good. I'm glad it's not too loud on your end. Like, really loud here. Unfortunately for me. So again, adding a little bit of skin tone to the gray of the hair. A little more light up here. I'm going to start off with the light on the forehead. I'll switch back to the skin tone brush. A little lighter back here. A little more towards the greenish. And this is basically how you want to layer oil paintings. You want to first not use any medium and then gradually increase your medium. For example, there's no medium in the light. The only medium is in the shadow. And I'm using Venetian medium, which is a fast dryer. A little bit of the flake white. Now we can add some impasto. Now I'm going to add more of this greenish mixture. Because though the yellow works, I think this is the skin tones are a little more pale. And it's just easier to work the painting this way. It makes more sense, at least to me, instead of trying to do this all in one layer. And it gets a little darker as it turns away. Make it a little brighter. Okay. Alright, so let's get into this section here, which is kind of troubling. The cheekbone is a little too round. Hey Maria, thanks for joining the live stream. Let me just check on the camera a little bit. I think I almost got paint on the webcam. By the way, this is a webcam that you're seeing the palette on. Alright, so I tend to darken an area and then go over it with light. So that's why I'm making this rather dark right now. I'm going to go over it with light soon. And so again, I had the cheekbone a little too round before. Again, if you have any art-related questions, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, I won't really be speaking as much. Okay, so now I'm gonna stand back. So I am standing and painting as I'm working on this one. which is very important until you kick the camera. Hold on a second. Let me adjust that for you. And if you can, I do recommend standing and painting, preferably in a more quiet environment. Now this takes on a bit more of a yellowish, I don't know if that's the yellowing of the painting. To be on the safe side, I think I'll make it a little towards the pinkish. So starting off with this darker mixture. Now we're switching to the light brush. So I have a dark brush, a light brush, and then a grayish brush with the hair color. Speaking of the hair, let me fix that. Now I'm going to start to work the light into this darker mid-tone. Be careful not to over round it. And since the shadow has mediums, it's layering on really nicely. Alright, so now I'm gonna get back to the eyes. Now this one is completely off. Now last time I thought that it was in the right place, but I was also sitting and painting. So I'm going to raise it slightly relative to this eye. And to do things like that, you just have to be bold. Treat it just like a drawing. And again, if I want to, I can just subtract that with paper towel and the eyes in the same place again. Again, this is the advantage of working in layers. So we'll move the eye to about here. It's not a huge change, but it does need to raise relative to the eye to our right. The glabella is a little wider. Hey, Voice of Reason, do you ever have oil painting companies wanting you to test or promote their products? Nope, and I wish I did, but no. I'm not cool enough. No, I am not. Maybe one day. Appreciate the comment, though. Anybody knows any oil painting companies that want to reach out to me, definitely let me know. I'm going to stand back for a second. That seems to be about better. It's a very delicate angle between those two eyes. And I worked really hard to try to get it correct last time, but it didn't happen. You see, I was sitting and not standing back enough, which is something I tell you to do often. I tell you to stand back. And I didn't listen to my own advice. And this is the price I pay. But hey, if you ever find that you have to move an eye, just remember this stream. I had to do it too. And if you found it once before, you can find it again. Otherwise, it's just luck, and you don't want to paint with luck. You don't want to just be lucky and get the eye in the right spot. So these four colors, again, the lead white, yellow ochre, cadmium red deep, and ivory black, have pretty much all you need for basic skin tones. Now obviously, if you're going to be painting a model in direct sunlight, or painting a model in a bright fluorescent light, I don't know, maybe like a purplish light, or I don't know, something crazy like that, then of course you're going to need other colors. But under most natural light circumstances and most halogen light circumstances, these four colors are pretty much all you're going to need. And for the Zorn palette, which is what this is, definitely use cadmium red deep and not light if you can avoid it. And some areas in the paintings are just cursed. This eye is definitely cursed. Now obviously if I had a grid or something, then I would have been able to place it correctly the first time. But I'm stubborn. I like to just figure things out as I go. Now I'm using that grayish tone, mixing it right with the skin tone. That tends to work. And this is another very forgiving property of oil paint. It just allows you to maneuver it. I'm going to stand back again. And I cannot emphasize how important standing back is. Like I said, my biggest mistake last time when I was working on this, that I just was not standing back. And I actually usually prefer to hold this palette. I actually don't paint like this, having the palette on a table. Because when you can hold the palette, you can mix while you stand back. Or just take paint from your palette while you're standing back. These are pre-mixtures, so I'm really not mixing very much. The larger brush. Now ideally when you make these pre-mixtures on your palette, you want this first row to match areas of the skin tone. And then these are going to be the ones that you use just to change the hue. I'm going to stand back again. Small changes, big difference, I would say. Now I'm going to go back to the other eye, figure some stuff out, or at least add some more stuff. This is why I have you in close up. Might be a bit dark and red, so let's use the greenish mixture. Still a little too red, so the light greenish mixture. Hello there, thanks for watching from Tokyo. That's awesome. We're in two completely different parts of the world, yet we're still able to connect. through the painting session on YouTube. That's awesome. Thanks for saying hello from Tokyo. I actually had that eye a little too large. I'm adjusting it as I go. Yep, and I apologize for that noise once again. Remember, that noise is not always in my live streams or videos. It's just I started streaming and they started making noise, so again, I'm sorry about that. Got no control over that. So what I'm doing is I'm just moving my eye back and forth from reference to painting and standing back frequently. Just little by little refining different areas. And I try to look for the things that are the most different. So right here I'm missing a little bit of the fold, the form overlap. Hey David Rodriguez, thanks for joining. Again, I apologize for that noise, everyone. If need be, just silent the video. Or if it bothers you, you can definitely tune into the video that I created before this one, which features the start of this painting. Okay, standing back again. And the facial hair is much lighter. I'm going to use the brush that I added the medium with in the beginning. It's just way lighter. Hey Helen, will this be a bit available to buy when finished? Well, certainly, it can be. Thanks for joining, by the way, Helen. I will put this one and the recent master studies available for sale in the future if anyone's interested. And this will not be finished today. By the way, those of you watching this, like I'm saying, these master studies take quite a bit of time. So just like the other one that I was working on, it will be finished in the studio, and then the finished picture will be posted on Instagram. So depending on your interests, I could either start another one next time or continue to work on this one. These days I really try not to finish try to finish a painting in a live stream. It's just too much pressure. There's all the little nuances and details involved in finishing a painting that really do take time. Now I'm even going to adjust the shape of the beard. I'm going to see how much further I can punch up the facial hair. I'm going to stand back and squint. Make sure to stand back and squint. Only when you're painting though, don't stand back and squint periodically when you're not painting. Okay, I see something. I see something. There's a line here that doesn't need to be there. And the forehead is much larger. So these are fun little discoveries that are made along the way. Using comparative measurement. Just compare. Use your eye. Okay. Gonna stand back again. So basically, every time I stand back, I'm asking myself, what's the most different thing on my painting than the original? So the lower lip needs some information now. So the lower lip is rather red, and I've actually got it a little too far. A little too far to the left. And what this is just a laid back approach. A laid back approach, classical realist painting. And the more you do these master studies, depending on who the master is that you're trying to learn from, the more you pick up on the subtleties and intricacies involved in the art of painting. Because a lot of it is really, it's like an analogy. I heard one person say that. You're trying to make an analogy. You're saying that this painting is an analogy of life. It's not supposed to be a one-to-one representation of it. So you through these master studies, you learn what to put in and what to leave out when you're painting your own paintings. Oftentimes, I'll ask myself, did Rembrandt paint this level of detail to get something to read? And oftentimes he did. So sometimes going into that kind of Rembrandt type of level of detail is a good thing. But the way that you edit your painting is something that you learn, something that you can learn through these studies. For example, this little red dot there in the side plane of the nose. Something like that. Like I wouldn't have put that in my own painting, but I get to see it in the Rembrandt, recreate it, and then study its significance. This is a bridgeway plane. I'm making it a little more orangey greenish. stand back again. Remember, every time I'm standing back, I'm asking myself, what is the most different looking thing? And right now, I'm looking at an iPad for my photo reference, and the iPad is much brighter, which is not the case in real life. I'm pretty sure that this painting isn't as bright as it is in the photo reference, but what I am noticing is that the skin complexion in general could possibly be even more pale. So I'm going back to that greenish mixture, the greenish and white. This is one of the benefits of working with lead white. You can use more of it without raising the value, which allows you to have a thicker consistency of paint. Now this area needs to be a little more towards the greenish. Very pale orangey tones. It's weird to describe it. Orangey greenish. So some areas are more orangey pinkish, others are orangey greenish. Let's add some more detail now to the eyes. Got a question from Edward Soto. Let's see. Should you try painting using yellow ochre, white, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and quinacridone magenta? Is a more modern version of the Zorn palette. Good comment. Let me analyze it for you. So let's see. If we're assuming that the white that we're using is lead white, then yeah, that's good. Yellow ochre, of course, is good because it's kind of the most important yellow for skin tones if you're trying to paint like old master looking skin tones. So burnt umber is like raw umber, but it is more towards the orangey red. So burnt umber has a nice orangey reddish quality, but it lacks the pink. Let's see, ultramarine blue. When you mix ultramarine blue with burnt umber, you basically get ivory black, so I see the reasoning there. Let's see now, quinacridone magenta. Quinacridone magenta is very blue. It's a bright pink, but it leans towards the blue. So what you're missing in this palette is a primary red to get your orange. So you can use this palette, but your paintings will be cooler, colder than something made with the Zorn palette. Though you can basically get the same range, but it's going to be a little bit cooler and a little bit more see, I don't know if quinacridone magenta is transparent or not, but I think it is. I think it's semi-transparent. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. So let's see. Yellow ochre is transparent. Titanium white is opaque. Burnt umber is transparent. Ultramarine blue is transparent. And we're assuming quinacridone magenta is semi-transparent. I think it is. So this means that your palette's mostly transparent and it leans towards cooler, bluish looking skin tones. Yes, you can use this palette, but I would recommend having a primary red. And this is an excellent question. Thank you for this question, Edward Soto. Okay, so standing back now. A lot of stuff. Every time I stand back, there's something new that I need to add or subtract. So please keep the questions coming. If you do have any art-related questions, like Edward's question. And one thing I see is that I need to sharpen the edge for the upper eyelid. It's too soft at the moment. And I recommend that you experiment with any kind of techniques or materials when it comes to oil painting or just art in general. Especially when you're just learning. It's a good idea to explore. And eventually you will find what works best for you. And those of you that may have been watching this YouTube channel since it began, you know that I've experimented with pretty much almost anything you can imagine with oil paint. Okay, so now the structure for the side of the eye socket. And please by no means expect this video to be a super exciting, in-your-face kind of video. This is the pace, really. But I usually get more questions than this. I guess this is what I get for streaming later. So if you are watching this live and you've been wanting to ask me anything art related, please feel free to ask. Just like Edward's question, I would definitely love to be able to analyze your question and respond as coherently as possible. Every time I stand back, I see something different, something new. And I will say this one is testing my patience a little bit. So if you find that that happens to you, know that it happens to me. And that's really where you learn. Not everything is all sunshine and daisies with painting. There are real struggles. And right now I'm really trying to find a good kind of common ground with the skin tone. And not the color of the skin tone, but the form. Mid-tone is a little more orangey. Now I'm going to add more light to the forehead. That orangey mix. Now that we're talking about palettes, let's ask everyone what's everyone's palette right now that you're using. We've got like 20 of us here watching, so okay, now we have 19 of us watching. So let's have at least 10 comments on what your current palette setup is. So please just write your palette from, I guess, right to left. That's how I usually list them out. And if you work in acrylic, then please feel free to write your acrylic palette too, or watercolor, or pastel, or whichever. I'm interested in knowing what everyone's using. Right now I'm using the forehead as a color gauge. It's lighter, more pale, yellowish, but it's, at the moment I think I need to lean it more towards the pink. Hey Jazz W. So I'm mixing right onto the painting to avoid having pure lead white. Hey Jazz W, this is a Rembrandt painting. The reference is linked in the description box if you want to see this image. It's from the National Gallery of Art in the UK. Alright, Edward, your palette. Titanium white, yellow ochre, quinacridone, magenta, burnt umber, ultramarine blue. But you're thinking of adding cadmium yellow so you can mix with magenta to make a red color. You know, when it comes to red, Edward, I would definitely just suggest, if you can, just get cadmium red. Yeah, I've done some videos where I've used transparent mummy or burnt sienna as my quote-unquote like cadmium red, and it works. I mean, you can get by not using red, but it's just I would just really suggest it, because then you can control the entire value range, whereas anytime you don't have the primary red, so cadmium red deep, then you kind of have to make it up, like you just said, mixing cadmium yellow with magenta. But cadmium yellow with quinacridone magenta won't make a pure cadmium red. However, it'll warm it up a little bit, but it won't be as bright red as primary of a red as cadmium red. Okay, so I'm going to now add some of the detail for the facial hair and the shadow, just to kind of take a break from the skin tones. So it's a dark grayish, mixing directly onto the painting. And remember, I added medium to this in the beginning of the session. I may need to add a little more medium. So remember, I'm using Venetian medium. It is a moderately fast drying, but not incredibly fast drying medium. Hey Jazz W, Terra Rosa. Oh, okay, that's a good color to use too. That's similar to transparent mummy. I've seen friends of mine use Terra Rosa. I've seen that color work really nicely with skin tones. So you could use that as your red. It does lean a little bit orangey from what I've seen. So if the model has orangey skin complexions, I mean, it's not as orangey as transparent mummy, and it doesn't have the intensity of cadmium red, but you can certainly use it to add a little bit more warmth. But there really isn't a substitute for cadmium red with skin tones. I mean, there is a substitute Winsor Newton makes. I haven't tried it. It's lead or cadmium free. It's like cadmium red, cadmium free. I don't know what it's called, but exactly what they call it. Has anyone here had any experience with those? I really should use a bigger brush. I'm gonna use a bigger brush for this. Hey Charlie, acrylic palette, titanium white, carbon black, cadmium red, naphthol red, pyrrole orange, burnt umber, raw umber. Good color palette. Good color palette. So let me see here. Titanium white is good to raise the value. You have carbon black, which is basically every black. Cadmium red, which is definitely necessary. Naphthol red, which is a little. I think naphthol red is a more pink. It's a little more pink, so that gives you a more intense, bright pinkish red. Pyrrole orange is basically kind of like a substitute for cadmium orange, so that's a good color to have to punch up the oranginess. Burnt umber and raw umber, cool. Yeah, that's a really good palette. I'm trying to find your yellow. Let's see. I don't see a yellow, but I'm pretty sure you can get some nice warm tones with burnt umber. So thanks for sharing, Chai. Hey Jazz W, you've written, I'm scared to paint facial hair. It always looks bad, even eyebrows. Well, the trick to that is edges. So if the edges are too sharp, so for example, if the edges are too sharp around here, it's going to look a little bit like, not like facial hair, but like clay. So, if this was too sharp up here or up here, then it might look like someone got a Sharpie and drew it on there. So it's about the edges and the shape. Oh, you do have cadmium yellow. Oh, okay, good. Hey, Jazz W, cadmium free red is slightly different color to cadmium red in acrylics. See, that's where I would have a little concern. If it's at all different than, if the substitute is at all different than the original cadmium color, I'd be a little concerned with the color range that you can get from it. Yep, no problem, Chai. Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions about colors, as you can probably tell, I've experimented with a lot of colors in the past. So even though I'm using the Zorn palette, I have used a lot of different colors. This is that edge that I was talking about, and there's some detail in the facial hair. So we'll hint at a few little whiskers here. So I got a question for everyone. What physical palette are you using? Like I was saying, this is a handmade palette that someone named Larry Wiseman made, and you can only really get it in person in Baltimore, because I don't think Larry has a website. Though if he does have a website, I'm gonna figure that out and link it for you. But as far as I can tell, he doesn't have a website. So this is a handmade wooden palette. What palette is everyone using? Are you using a stay wet palette? If you're using acrylics, are you using a new wave palette? If you're using a oil painting palette, are you using glass? What's everyone using? I tend to think of palettes as works of art. There's a lot of craftsmanship that goes into it. So I like to collect palettes. Seems like that background noise has stopped, which is good. Good for the video. Alright, let's see, we've got some comments. So Jazz W, non-stick palette for oil paints, cool. Try recycling. Sounds good. Recycling is good. Which is the nice thing about these, because you can reuse them basically forever. Hey Edward, so your dad works with aluminum and glass. So you've written, I've made mine with glass and aluminum. So even if it falls, it won't break. And that bad boy is 2 feet wide. Awesome! That is awesome. Every glass palette has its day, except for yours. Your glass palette will live on. I've broken so many glass palettes in the past. Hey Chili One, recycled frozen dinner plastic trays. I've done that before. It works. I mean, if it works. Hey Jazz W, homemade stay wet palette for acrylics. 2 cafeteria trays, wet paper towel, and wax paper. Brilliant. Very clever idea, Jazz W. So let's see what everyone's using to mix their paints on. I want to share something that one of my students said as well. I mean, this has nothing to do with the question, but since I do have Zoom sessions with some of my students on Tuesdays and Fridays, one of my students wrote that they, or told me that they have their Zoom on their painting while they're painting, and they can actually see their painting on their screen, their computer screen, next to the reference as they're painting, which is kind of brilliant. It's very smart. So remember, the cameras do distort. But in case you want to have like a second view of your painting other than a mirror, that's actually a really smart idea. Hey Lens, CRIV. Oh, thank you. Thanks for your nice comment. There's some facial hair going on down there. I didn't quite notice it before. And sometimes a really beat up brush like this one does a better job at the detail work than a brand new tiny brush. And I've been cleaning it with this soap called the Master Soap. And basically the only wear and tear that happens with my brushes is when I'm painting, bristles come off. That just happens naturally anyway when you paint. Not that I'm sponsored by them, but definitely my favorite soap to use when I'm cleaning brushes. It can even sometimes take off dried paint, which is remarkable. Alright, let's see. Oh, message retracted. There was a message there, but it's gone. Yep, feel free to ask me any art-related questions. And since the there haven't been that many questions today, if you really want me to talk about something, whether it's color, drawing, I don't know, like proportion or anything like that, just feel free to ask. And I'll be able to talk about it to the best of my knowledge. I'm going to stand back again. And every time I stand back, I feel like the forehead needs to be larger and brighter. So let's do that. Let's make it even larger. So I may actually have to push the hairline up a little bit. It just looks like it needs to be larger. And I'm relying a lot on this orangey mixture. Not orangey, sorry, this greenish mixture. After I move the forehead up, I'm gonna go ahead and take a break for a little while. All right, let's see. So, question from Chili1. Is standing better than sitting while painting? I've gotten into the habit of sitting. Let me tell you something, Chili1. If I were standing and painting when I started this one, I don't think I would have made as many drawing mistakes as I did. So if you can, standing is a whole lot better than sitting when you're painting. So, but I do know, of course, that there's complications with standing for a long period of time. So if you are sitting and painting, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure to sit back a little bit once in a while. Add some thicker paint now. Adjust W. Yeah, I see what you mean with the forehead. And at this point, the painting has gotten far enough that if you see something that you want me to adjust, or you think I should adjust, definitely feel free to comment. In the beginning, I did mention that I wouldn't really be answering comments that were about how things were different. But now that the painting is far enough, I'm open to comments as long as it's not, anything malintent. But yes, I do see that the forehead has to curve back a little more. I'm trying to push this even further back. The color is not quite correct, but I'm trying to get the shape correct first. And I do think that the forehead, this part of the forehead needs to angle a bit more. Hey Chai, how do you keep your tone strong while using color? So the values, how do I keep the values strong when using color? Good question. And so I'm going to answer this question and then, well, first I'm going to do one little adjustment. I'm going to answer your question and then I'm going to take a short break. So first I'm going to adjust this edge. It seems like there's a difference in this edge that I need to address. Okay, now I'll get to that question. So This was actually a demonstration of how I do that. How do I manage my values while using color? Number one, light brush. This is a dark brush. Background brush. Light gray brush. Dark brush. Dark brush. Small gray brush. And then this is just a little Sable brush. So I keep my brushes organized in terms of light brush or dark brush. And on the palette, I'm going to show you right now, there are premixtures. So you see the premixtures ranging from normal, naturalistic looking skin tones. So these skin tones here are supposed to match the skin tones, some of the skin tones on the forehead. So this is from light to dark. These are the pinkish tones, light to dark. The greenish tones, light to dark. The orangey tones, light to dark. And then the gray tones on the bottom. So that's how I organize it and keep it, that's how I try to keep it as organized as possible. And that's what allows me to basically work with color and value at the same time. So that was a fantastic question. Let me try, let's see, I spent a long time just doing tonal painting and I'm just starting to use color. Well, that's a good way to start. I mean, doing monochrome, and that's how I have my students start. I have them do fully monochromatic underpaintings before getting into color. And then when you get into color, working over top of a monochromatic painting is not a bad idea, and that's what I have my students do. And that's the classical way to build up a painting. So what I'm gonna do now is take a break for maybe about a couple minutes, and we're gonna return, do some last minute adjustments here, and then we'll sign out for the evening. So I'll be back in a couple minutes. So don't worry, I will, hold on, that webcam. There we go. Don't worry, I'll be back in just a couple minutes. Alright, I have returned. There is the palette. Let's get the, hold on, there we go. The camera is back. Let's see if we've got any questions. Let's see, nope, looks like we haven't gotten any new questions, which is okay. I actually want to show you something in terms of palettes. Remember I was talking about how this is like kind of hard to find a round palette that's made of real wood. I'm going to show you something. So this is another palette here that looks the same. I mean, it's larger. It is a wooden palette. It is a round oval wooden palette, and it's one of those palettes that you can find in any kind of art store that kind of like looks like the old master type palettes, but isn't. And I'm going to show you a difference. If you look, I don't know if it shows up, but if you look at the edge of this wood, oftentimes you can actually peel the edge of the wood. So here I can actually peel the edge, and you'll find that this is actually just more like a plywood or like a particle board, where this in here, this stuff in here is kind of like the consistency of paper. So it's not real wood. But then you look at this one, which is a handmade one. You look at the edges and you see that it's number one, it's rounded. And number two, when you run basically your hand across it, your nail across it, there's no like weird paper kind of feel. So I think this is maple wood, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know, I'm gonna have to ask the guy that made this, but it is completely solid. It doesn't have that kind of paper like feel to the edges. So this is as close as I can get to an old master palette, because of course they used real wood for that. So this is awesome. This is like my favorite thing ever right now. My favorite material possession ever. So I'm going to paint for a little bit longer, not that much, and then we're going to sign out and continue this painting at a later date, or just show the finished one on Instagram. So let's see. As I stand back, I see that the biggest thing that I'm noticing that's different is the subtlety of this pink. It's a little too bright. The next thing, of course, is going to be the hair, as I did adjust it. The edge of the hairline. So switching to this grayish brush, the grayish toned brush. Well, the hair comes out to about there. And overall, the painting is not as contrasty as it appears to be in the video. It's just the way the camera makes it look. Hey Ingrid, welcome. I'm using lead white number 1 Rublev, which is the linseed lead white. Yellow ochre, blue ridge. This is blue ridge yellow ochre, and blue ridge yellow ochre. This is Rublev, This is Cadmium Red Deep Old Holland, and this is just Ivory Black. Although when I started this one, I used German Vine Black, which is a Rublev color. And of course I've got the pre-mixtures on the palette already, so I've just been picking and choosing from the pre-mixtures. That was a little too sharp. You know, it's really interesting to recreate older paintings. So this is a 17th century painting, of course, that we're recreating or we're studying. It's interesting, you know, I think of random things like when I'm painting the hair. You know, I don't know if they had shampoo and conditioner in the 17th century. I mean, they must have had some stuff to clean their hair, of course, but you know, the hair to me, it looks in the Rembrandt painting, it looks like shampoo and conditioner. Hey, Deborah. Yep, I am doing these streams at kind of like random times, really. I don't have a fixed schedule for these just yet. And this one is going to end soon, but the footage will be available as a pre-recorded video on YouTube. Of course, in the beginning of this video, all the way through the middle of the video, there was a lot of background noise. So I apologize for that. I've been apologizing for that all night. I think I'm sorry enough. Okay, a few last minute adjustments on the hair, and then I think we'll call it a day. And I'm gonna move the camera, of course, so you see it with less distortion before we sign out. Overall, I'd say this painting session has gone pretty well. Had some struggles earlier. I completely took out that eye and then had to adjust it. Speaking of which, it's too red underneath. So I'm using this greenish mixture. Question from Lens. Why use cadmium red deep and not cadmium red light or vermilion? Just wondering. Alright, so if I had genuine vermilion, if I had it, I would use it because that would be awesome. That's like what the old masters used. Even though it does have mercury in it, obviously if you use it carefully, I'm sure you'll be fine. But yeah, if I had genuine vermilion, I would use it, but I don't. It's difficult to find genuine vermilion, and it's very expensive. So why am I using cadmium red deep versus light? Great question. So cadmium red light is a little too bright, depending on the brand, of course. It's a little too, the value is too light, and it's not perfectly in the middle. cadmium red light is not perfectly in the middle for red. Cadmium red deep is as in the middle of a red as you can possibly get. So that's why I use it, because I want to have a in the middle red to use. And in fact, most vermilion hues are incorrect. Most vermilion hues that you find on the market appear to be more orangey, which is not true from what I see on from what I read on the internet. Vermilion is supposed to be a very almost like a bluish red. I've never worked with it. I would like to use it at some point in my life. But yeah, that's the reasoning for cadmium red deep. It's nice, perfectly in the middle. Yep, we got some online students here, so great to see you. And remember, the yeah, these streams are kind of, I stream them whenever I can, whenever it can fit in my schedule. But the online classes will remain consistent. New lessons every Wednesday and every Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That won't change. So every time I make a mark, I stand back. Okay, alright, I think that's good for now. I'm going to move the camera. I'm going to move the camera so you can see the painting with less distortion. Bear with me though, as it is going to be a little shaky. Okay, there it is with a little less distortion now. And that's almost front and center. Slightly off. And I'm going to show you something. It is the camera that makes it look a little more contrasty. So when I lighten it so you can see the background, now you can see that everything is not completely dark over there. In fact, it's not that dark at all. The darkest darks are here and here and here and under here, but all of this is actually lighter. But I can't quite have the camera like this because it over brightens. So what I have to do is adjust my light. Looks like a magic trick a little bit. So what I'm doing is adjusting my light. I have a LED light, so you can see it a little better. But it does make it darker in the room, so I wouldn't actually be able to paint like this. So now you see, I wouldn't be able to paint like this because the camera is like right in front of this, and I'm standing when I'm painting. One last little adjustment, and then I'm gonna answer any questions. I don't want this to dry sharp, so. Brushes down. Alright, let's see. AIA Medico. Thank you for your comment. Thank you so much. Ooh, okay. Brushes are not down. I see something here. I don't know what this is doing there, but I'm taking it out. Okay. Alright, now brushes down. Thank you, Ingrid. Okay, so any questions? So I'm going to be here just for another couple minutes, answer any questions, and the first thing I'm going to do is make a comment, which is I do not have a fixed schedule for these streams. I'm basically streaming whenever I can. However, the online classes are on a fixed schedule, so I have new lessons every Wednesday and every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They are streamed live, and then the pre-recorded videos are available for all online students. Live stream tier students, which is students that are able to watch the videos live, are able to watch and comment live. And I do Zoom. I paint with my students on Zoom every Tuesday at 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then I do up to 3 individual Zooms on Fridays. So I'll be painting one-on-one on Zoom with 3 students tomorrow. Let's see. Hey Deborah, I think with every Rembrandt study you've done, they've become exponentially more amazing. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Hey, realistic art, why don't you draw from life? I do draw from life. I just don't draw from life when I'm doing a live stream or a video, because I'd have to hire a model to pose for me, and that costs money. A lot more money than I'm able to upfront for a video. And these master studies are meant to be learning exercises. So we've done quite a few Rembrandt studies. I got my collection over here, and these paintings will be available for sale soon at some point. So I'm going to just show you some of them before I head out, if I can, just so you can see what I've been doing. Okay, so this is one, which is still not finished actually. That's the one from before. This is another one which has sunken in quite a lot. Showing you my collection of Rembrandts. It's going to be kind of sad to let these go, but I will put them all for sale eventually. There's another one. And another one. And another one. But wait. There's more. I've got another one. Actually, I've got, I think 2, maybe 3 more. I don't know. I think just 2 more. So here's another one. And another one. So we've got a lot of Rembrandts. And this is basically what I've been doing to improve my painting. And with my online classes, we are currently doing a Zorn master study. So this is a Zorn master study that we've been doing. It's a larger painting, but I can't fit the whole thing here. So that's the one we're doing for the Zorn master study project in the online classes. We've got another one, another master study that we've done, which is a Bouguereau, which I seem to have misplaced. I would show you if I could find it, but it's kind of not in this room right now. So yes, these are learning exercises, and they help me tremendously when it comes to learning how to paint better with each painting. Hey, realistic art, what do we learn from master studies? What's the goal? The goal is to basically uncover information that we didn't know before through the art of studying master paintings. So basically, every time you reach a point in a master study where you don't know what to do, that is a learning experience where you sit there, you work through all the frustrations, and you discover something new. Rembrandt just happens to be, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, portrait painter in history. So there's all kinds of hidden information in those paintings that are just waiting to be uncovered. And that's why I like to do Rembrandt studies. Hey Deborah, Can you bring back the Rembrandt self-portrait with the black beret for a second? Sure. I think I know which one you're talking about. Is that the younger Rembrandt? I've got so many Rembrandts. Is this the one you're talking about? I think. But again, there's a picture of this on my Instagram. Of course, it's different from the original. All of them are different, but with each one of them, I learned something. So, for example, this one is really smooth, and the original actually wasn't painted by Rembrandt. This is a painting that someone did of a Rembrandt. So this is a study of someone's study of a Rembrandt. So it's a little different. It's the older one. Okay, let me figure it out. I don't know which one it is. Is it this one? Is this the one you're talking about? And if this is the one you're talking about, this is when I was first really experimenting with texture. And when I started this one, I put too much medium in the whatever it was, I think like the second layer. And it took longer to dry because I used too much medium. So this is when I learned to use little to no medium. I think this is the one you're talking, older with the black hat. This is the only one, that was the only one I think where he has a black hat. I think. The other one is a brown hat. Oh good, I got it right. So yeah, this one definitely needs to be, and it needs to be cleaned and then varnished. But yeah, this one is, I learned a lot in terms of texture with this one. And then after this one, basically all of my other paintings had more texture, and I learned more about how to use the texture in such a way that it adds to the painting. So this one I did after that one. So you can see this one I think is even further advanced than that one. So this one was painted after that, and you can see there's texture in it. It's very thick, but it is much more refined. So the texture is kind of woven a little bit more naturalistically. That would make an interesting YouTube video. Meet my Rembrandt collection. Full studio tour of the Rembrandt collection. At this point, it's probably too late at night. I'm gonna say something silly and get in trouble. Okay, so it looks like I've answered all the questions that we've had for tonight's live stream. So remember, if you are interested in taking online classes with me, the link is in the description box for my online classes. They start out at just $10 a month, which gives you access to all of the pre-recorded video. I think we've, at this point, probably have over 100 lessons, so you can take all the time you need with each one of the projects. And the best part is, at that level, you can send me images each week, up to 2 images each week, for what I call the virtual classroom, which is a video where I give up to 3 pointers of advice to student artworks. We have our own private Facebook group for the online class, and students can also send me artworks through the Gmail as well. And then it only adds to that. So in addition to that, for the at a little bit more of a fee, you're able to watch the lessons streamed live, and then you're also able to paint with me on Zoom, which is the next increment up from that level. Yeah, he did have so many self-portraits. Alright, so thank you so much for watching, everyone. I wish you the very best in all of your artwork, and I'll see you on the next one.